Do you have small pockets? The company BRRR is not meant to enlarge your pocket size, but more so enlarge the amount of wealth in your bank account through real estate investing with a whole bunch of useful calculators, blogs, networks, anything you need if you want to start investing in real estate. And so that's why this week our guest Austin is going to be the perfect person to dive into what BRRR has, what he likes about it, what turned him onto it, and why you need to look into BRRR if you want to start investing today. So join us on this week's episode of Business Bookend, a part of the Beyond Real Estate podcast, where we dive just into BRRR, not their podcast. We're not cannibalizing here, but just BRRR as a company. So stick around.
Welcome to Beyond Real Estate with Jalen, the podcast discussing parenting, real estate, and business. Every week, we go in depth on how to become successful in business and life. Jalen, take it away.
So we're talking about BRRR and not just the size of the denim squares that are attached to your jeans. No, we are talking about a company that's sole mission has been to better educate the real estate investing community and connect people that want to become investors with those that already have. So you don't have to learn the lessons the hard way. There's no need to if someone's already done it. So today we're talking with Austin, who we had on for our real estate roundup, talking about the fractional real estate investing, which has some interesting things that correlate to BRRR with some of the more popular investing strategies BRRR promotes, like the BRRRR method. But Austin, I'm going to throw this to you. What got you started on BRRR and what kept you going back for more?
Sure. So I think I gained my interest while I was in college. I was taking my real estate courses, didn't really know what to do with it, and a buddy of mine referred me to BRRR. So I started gradually listening, but I think it's for everybody and anybody. You have high-end investors and then those that are just getting started. So I think it's just good just to get a multitude of different perspectives on how people became successful. And big takeaway is how to get out of the rat race.
Yeah, the rat race for sure. Nick, when you think of BRRR, are you familiar with it at all? Or is Austin and I the only two people that have really dove into this?
You two lead the way in this one. Yeah, it's not one that I've had the opportunity to dive into, but it's now been put on my list from Austin. And I've looked at some of the pieces prior to us coming together and 100% moving forward, because that's one thing I'd like to continue to do is get fresh ideas, get new ideas. But it's funny because for the two of you, it's not even new, but for me it is. But I like that because the proof is in the pudding, right? It's not a space that is testing the waters, as you alluded to in the intro to this. It's people that have been there, done that, and you just steal from it and take what you like. And I think that's the beauty of podcasts in general, is having that option.
So Austin, when it comes to, with a wealth of information like BRRR, it can almost be daunting when you first get in. You're like, oh man, this is an established company. Basically, like anything, you're like, wow, there's a lot to this. Where do I start? So for someone that is just getting going or just discovered BRRR, or this is the first time they've ever heard of it, what would be the first thing that you recommend they do to get the most out of it from day one?
Just start listening. If anything, you just take bits and pieces what makes most sense to you. Not everything you're going to agree with. Maybe you have a different method of how you want to go about it, but you'll just get bits and pieces of things that you can take away. There's nothing specifically that I can tell you where it just changed my life. The advice that you get your low-end investors that are just getting started, and those that have built a portfolio in a short span of time. Those are cool stories to hear, and you just hear how they did it. I think that, and then they always ask, what's your favorite book at the end of the podcast? And it seems like everybody's favorite book is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So if you haven't read that.
Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah. Which sometimes some of the stuff that he says now, I'm just like you were smart for your time, but sometimes
again,
you just go off the deep end.
You take bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Take what you want.
Yeah, don't worship the guy, but if he says something smart, you're like, that's applicable, go ahead and steal that. So the big thing, and I never heard of this before BRRR, but I'm sure it had a myriad of different names, was the BRRRR method. You brought that up in Real Estate Roundup. Can you explain to everyone what the BRRRR method is and why it is the preferred way for a lot of the investors on BRRRR to grow their portfolios, and to the mentality of how they grow that portfolio and why they grow it the way they do?
Sure. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So You buy an undervalued property, you put a little bit of capital expenditures into it, rent it out, and then you refinance, hopefully into a lower interest rate, and then you pull the cash out and repeat the process. So now you invest into another property. And all you're doing is you're building your portfolio without having to dip into your actual cash. Your cash is built into the equity. As the appreciation value goes up, continue to pull out the cash and repeat the process. So as far as scaling, this was a method that I heard on BiggerPockets, and one that it seems like a lot of people are trying to capitalize on.
Yeah, and it can definitely be difficult with interest rates having been rising.
It's not as easy. It's not as easy as they make it seem, but there's some validity in what they talk about.
Yeah, you hear some of the success stories, and again, you don't ever hear the failure stories. Really, are they like, so this guy he lost everything on this. So let's get him in here and start talking about how he mortgaged his home, wasn't able to live anywhere. Now he's on the street with his kids. You don't hear that story too much. But yeah, you do hear a lot of stories of the guy went from 0 to 100 doors in less than 5 years. You're like, wow, I want to do that. And then it's a really hard starting place. And that's why for anyone that hasn't watched our real estate roundup with Austin, where he talks about how you can get into real estate investing with a fractional model, go check it out. I'm not going to explain it. But Nick, when you hear something like the BRRR method, so buy, refurbish, refinance, repeat, did I miss one?
Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat.
There we go.
You were there.
Yeah.
I missed the rent part. You're just owning all these properties, not making any money. My BRRR method is a lot worse. Nick, when you hear that, what do you think of that? And do you think that it's doable? You're in one of the most competitive markets in the country, if not the world. When Austin said they have $1 billion, or one of the companies you referenced, $1 billion worth of total assets. I think one of your partners was managing $1 billion worth of total assets. I was like, California, that's 5 homes. Nick, when it comes to this type of method, do you think that it would work in the California market? Do you see how it would be able to work, or do you think that this is more?
But things are relative, and I think that's where people lose perspective sometimes, is they just think it's impossible because of the expense of something, and that's not the reality. And another thing that comes to mind when it comes to that method is it's simplified a complex process, but simple doesn't mean easy. And I think a lot of people confuse themselves with those things of, as Austin alluded to, it sounds so simple, but again, getting yourself in those positions is where the art of it comes in, right? The science is banging out the numbers. The art of it is, how do I negotiate my way there and position myself to make stuff happen? And I think that's very much a reality. It's not an either or, it's an and, right? And too often people want to isolate. Do I need the money, or do I need to know the right people? What came first, the chicken or the egg, right? It's really an and conversation, not an or conversation. So that's where my head goes when I think of that process, or any process. Number one, can you simplify it? Because now you can repeat it. And now it's, how do I position myself to execute that simplified process?
And Austin, I'm sure you still pop in to listen to a podcast every once in a while. What was the most recent one that you were able to have some nice takeaways from? What were those takeaways? And yeah, how do you apply that? Because I guess my question always is, when you have that wealth of information, we already covered, it's hard to know where to start, but also it's hard to know how to apply it and actually take useful takeaways from those. So how do you go about that process? And what was the most recent podcast or blog or whatever that you enjoyed and had some nice takeaways from?
Yeah, the last one on BiggerPockets was Evan Turner. He came on there, and I grew up watching him. I'm a huge Ohio State fan. So growing up watching Evan Turner, I didn't even know he invested in real estate, and he stuck around Ohio. So he actually lives in the Columbus market. When you go to the NBA and you start making a ton of money, you don't want to lose that money. And a lot of those athletes end up going broke. Getting his perspective, how he was fearful of going broke, but he knew he needed to invest his money. So he talks about how he started out with a 5-unit in Columbus, then bought a couple properties on campus, and then started to build his network. He invested, I believe, in 600 Goodale, which is an apartment complex in Columbus. He's got full investments that are out there right now, and he's trying to help with the housing shortage right now. So he's part of a development in Columbus to provide affordable housing. Hearing his journey, how he's gone from the NBA to retirement and investing, I think it just, from the investment side and hearing where he grew up and his background, was really cool to hear.
For me, just with that very quick synopsis, of course, I'm going to go check it out. Everyone should go check it out. We'll have it all linked below. But when it comes to that story in particular, it's that diversify. So you can still be in the same niche, whatever that niche is, but diversifying even within that niche is a great way to build that portfolio. You don't have to go and be like, no, I'm going to go do stock futures. No, his thing was real estate in the Columbus area, and he found ways to diversify within real estate in the Columbus area. Nick, any final questions or takeaways that you want that we haven't addressed?
Not necessarily that we haven't addressed. I'll just piggyback on the idea that last week it was, how do you continue to move forward? How do you continue to educate yourself? And this one stems off of that, became a little bit more specific with the bigger pockets conglomerate, if you will. But nonetheless, I think it's important just to hit this home because there's so many different ways and there's so many different avenues, and there's really no excuse not to in terms of why I don't have time because I drive a lot. Perfect. Podcasts and audiobooks should be your thing, right? Yep. And just give you those resources. That, again, weren't always available. Just like fractional real estate, it's helping redefine what normal is and your accessibility to what your normal can be. So I think it's a brilliant option.
If anyone has any questions regarding this, reach out to myself or Austin. His information is linked below, so you can message him or something. We're not giving out your phone number, Austin. Don't worry, or your personal email.
The other thing that I will add is,
yes,
if we're talking back to the company, our filings are filed through the SEC. So do your own due diligence. If you're like, hey, maybe I want to invest, look at our SEC filings before doing anything. So I always tell people that. I think that's the smart route.
Yes. Yeah. It's one of those things where you're like, I don't think I should have to say this, but there's always that one person that doesn't understand what they're getting into. And they're like, this isn't what I thought. So, did you read anything on it? Or were you just like, I heard I can make money off this. And so I started throwing money at it. So,
yeah. Do your own due diligence.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are all the NFT people out there that bought apes, whatever things for $100,000, and now everyone's, I don't want that, and now it's worth nothing. Everyone saw that coming. That wasn't news to anyone. Anyways, yeah, Austin, thanks for joining us for this week. We appreciated getting the insight and just having another form of education that we're always harping on it, and just having another form of education in the bigger pockets to share with everyone. Again, let us know where people can find you if they have any questions for you regarding how you guys are doing the investing, how to start doing investing themselves, and all of that jazz.
Yeah, if you'd like to set up some time, I'm happy to do a one-on-one. My email is austin@realpha.com. Again, that's austin@realpha.com, or feel free to check out our website, invest.realpha.com.
Perfect. All those will also be linked below and in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, just find somewhere safe to pull over and check it out. So Austin, again, thanks so much for joining us on Beyond Real Estate this week. This is all we have for this week's edition of the Business Bookend. Be sure to check back on Monday, where we will be hopping into a new #Dad Life. And as always, if you appreciated this episode or know anyone that could benefit from its information, follow, share, subscribe, whatever you're doing, wherever you're doing it, just do it. And thanks for listening to another week of Beyond Real Estate. We'll catch you here next week, same time, same place.
Want to see, hear, or listen to more of Nick's take on California real estate market? Check out my links below.
Also, check out the links below for more information on products, books, or references made in this podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.